Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back down to some single crochets just to solidify this kind of cinched in area. So for round 36 and 37, we are just simply going to do one single crochet into each stitch. Okay, so at this point here, I'm going to chain one, and I'm just going to go right into this space here, and I'm going to single crochet just to kind of bring that in. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work into the stitch here. So see, that's the post and this is the stitch. So these stitches will probably be a little bit stretched because they just came from a decreased row. So now with the single crochets, this will kind of snuggle them in a little bit more uniformly. So really straightforward, just going one single crochet into each stitch all the way around. So this is currently round 36. At the end of your round, you'll slip stitch to join, chain one, turn your work, and then do the same thing for round 37. Once you've completed that, I'll meet you back here to talk about round 38. Okay guys, so I have now completed round 37. So I've got the 2 rounds of single crochets here. And now it's just nipping in my bust portion really nicely. So it's got this kind of balloon kind of effect. So the top is where we're going to lace in our elastic in that little eyelet section. And that is actually what we're going to do here, just to create a little bit of an opportunity to cinch in just under the bust, okay? So we are now going to do 1 round of creating our eyelet row. So at the top we had 2 rounds because we started this way. So we're just going to create 1 of these eyelets, okay? So this is where we're going to start using our double crochet stitch again. So now that I've slip stitched to join my round, I'm actually going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Then I'm going to turn my work so that I can keep my seam in the same spot. And now in the very next stitch, I'm going to place 1 double crochet. Okay. Now I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch, I'm going to place a double crochet. Okay, so that creates our first eyelet there. I'm going to now, in the next stitch, place another double crochet. Okay, just like that. Now I'm going to chain 1. Skip the next stitch, and into the following 2 stitches, I'm going to place 1 double crochet into each stitch. And that is going to be the repeat for this round. So you have 2 double crochets, chain 1, skip a stitch, and then 2 double crochets. So this is round 38. Okay, just like that. So now you can really see that effect there. So you've got 2 double crochets close together and then a chain 1 to create a space. Okay, you know what to do. Okay, I'm at the very end of round 38 and it worked out perfectly. I've got 1 stitch left and I'm actually just going to go into that space and slip stitch to join. So now round 38, again, looks like this. So you've got your eyelets happening here. And for round 39 and 40, we're going to go back to our single crochets. Okay, so I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and I'm going to single crochet 1 stitch into each stitch. So what's going to happen here is I chained 1 and I turned. I'm going to go right back into that same stitch, or the previous stitch, I should say, because I've turned my work. And I'm just going to single crochet right away into that one. Now, anytime I come up to a space, I'm just going to single crochet into the space. Okay, so single crochet. Then the next one is a stitch. And the next one is a stitch. And the next one is a space. Now, it's really important to remember when you're creating your stitches, on the right side, your loop will sit on to the right of the stitch. See that? When you've turned your work, the loop that belongs to that stitch sits to the left of it. So there we go right there. So for example, I just single crocheted into the space. Now the next stitch, the loop of it sits right here to the left of the post. So I'm going to single crochet into that one. Now it would be easy to think I'm just going to go into the space, but there is the loop right there that belongs to this post. So I've got a single crochet into that, and then I'll go into the space. And it's really important to be aware of that, because if you miss these loops, it will decrease the number of stitches you've got, and that will greatly affect how your project's going to turn out. Okay. And I also have a little lesson. Actually, I have two video lessons called Identifying Parts of Your Stitch. And we talk a little bit about that. And I'll make sure to leave a link for that in the description box down below if you want to have a little bit of a deeper dive in understanding your stitches. But for the most part, once you remember for this first round here, which is round 39, always remember to get that second stitch before you single crochet into the space. Okay. And then round 40 will be very straightforward, because it'll just be one stitch into each stitch all the way around, single crochets. So I am going to leave you here to do round 39 and round 40. And then we'll talk about what's going to happen in round 41. Okay, so I've now completed round 40. So you can really see that bubble effect that it creates when we cinch back in and decrease the number of our stitches. So this is where we will insert another elastic here. And so now we're going to move on to round 41. And what we want to do here before we go on to that round is place 2 stitch markers. So you want to lay your work flat. And I'm doing it in such a way where my seam is going to sit somewhere in the middle here. So I want that seamed, even though you can't really see it, I want it to be in the back. So I'm just going to kind of put my work down here, and wherever my work bends and wherever my project creases here, that's where I want to place a stitch marker on each crease. This will give you a relative even number on each side. If you want to be very, very precise, you can absolutely count to make sure that you have the even number of stitches. But with this many stitches, I know many of you don't like to count, which I don't blame you. I should currently have in mind 184 stitches at the end of round 40. I'm going to put an increase on each side to just bring me up to 186. It doesn't sound like a lot, but eventually you're going to see that it will make a little bit of a difference as we go along. So for round 40, I'm going to just place a stitch marker in one of these stitches right there. And now I'm going to go to the other side and place a stitch marker in one of these stitches here. Just like that. Okay? And so when we get to this stitch marker, we're going to increase the number of stitches. So we're returning back to our V stitches for round 41. Okay, so at this point here, I've turned my work already. So I'm going to chain 3, 2, and 3. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right back into that same stitch, and I'm going to place another double crochet. So that chain 3 will count as a double crochet. just like that. So that's our first little mini V stitch there. And just like we did before, we're going to skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch we'll place 2 double crochets. So this is a repeat of what you have done in the past when we were creating our bust portion. Okay, so just keep doing that. 2 double crochets, skip a stitch, 2 double crochets, and I'll meet up with you once you hit your first stitch marker to just take you through that increase there. Okay, so I've come to my first stitch marker and it worked out perfectly. I've got 1 stitch available and then the stitch marker. So instead of just a V, what we're going to do is we're going to place a shell stitch. Okay, so I've skipped 1. So I'm going to place 3 double crochets into that stitch. So that will increase the number of stitches we have in total. And what this does is it's going to help to just create a little bit of a flare out. Now we don't want as much of a flare as what we did in the bust. So I kind of want it to be somewhat A-line with a little bit of a flow. So in round 41, that's what we're doing here. We're only putting 2 increases. So there you go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace that stitch marker and I'm going to put it right into the middle stitch of that shell. Just like that. And then I'll continue on as usual. I'll skip 1 and place a little V stitch into the next one and continue as I've been doing. A V, skip a stitch, a V, skip a stitch, etc. And when I get to the next stitch marker, I will do the exact same thing. I will place a shell stitch, which is 3 double crochets into that stitch. Then I will replace the stitch marker in the middle stitch there. And so I will then meet up with you when we're ready to begin round 42. Okay, so I have now completed row 41. So now you can really see that the band underneath the bust is really taking shape. And so what we're going to do for round 42 is we are just going to repeat what we've been doing all along here, and that is continue to place 1 V-stitch inside each V-stitch. So we're back to individual V-stitch. What's different in round 2 is when you come to that increase here, see how you have a shell? You're going to place a V-stitch inside of each V shaping. That will give us another increase again, okay? So in this round, I went up to 186 stitches, and because I am increasing on each end, that's why I wanted you guys to keep the stitch marker, I am going to now have 188 stitches. But as always, if you're off by 1 or 2 stitches in a project like this, it's not going to be the end of the world. So go ahead and do around 42, and I'll meet you back here shortly. Okay, so I've just completed round 42, and you can already see that it's starting to flare out. So actually it should be this way, because this is the top. And so now for round 43, we are just going to do our usual 1 V into each V stitch. So there will be no increases. I've kept my stitch marker here. And so what I did is I kept my stitch marker here. So what I did is I just placed it between the 2 V's that I placed in that shell. And that's really important to carry that stitch marker so that we have that for future increases. So round 43, 1 V into each V all the way around. For round 44 and 45, we are going to repeat round 41 and 42, okay? So that means that when we get to this stitch marker again, in round 44, we are going to place a shell in that space. So in round 43, you're going to place a V into a V. So this stitch marker will stay in between this space. But in round 44, you're going to place a shell here. When you come around to round 45, so see, you're going to do the same thing here. You're going to place a V inside a V of the V shapes of that shell. Oh, yeah. So you're basically repeating that. And we are going to increase our stitch count to 192 stitches in total if you're following along exactly with mine. So what we're doing is every time we do an increase, we are increasing by 2 stitches. So I'm going to leave you there to do that, and I'll meet you at the end of round 45. Okay, so now we're going to go on to round 46. So you can really see that the sides are kind of coming out a little bit. Round 46 is going to be pretty straightforward. You're just going to continue placing 1 V stitch into each stitch all the way around. And at the end of round 46, I will have 196 stitches. So just do your V's and we'll talk about round 47. Okay, for round 47, we are going to find a few more spots to add some increases here. So I've got a few more of my pins here, or any stitch markers that you may have. So what I want to do now is divide each panel, I'm calling it. So there's the front and then there's the back. I want to divide this into 3 sections here. So I base that on my side stitch markers where we were originally increasing on the side. So now what I want to do is, just to kind of make it a little easier, is I've counted the number of V's that I have from one stitch marker to the next. So for me, I have 48 V's. And if I divide that number by 3, that leaves me with 16. So basically from this first stitch marker, I'm going to count 16 V's, right? So that means that's 16 sets of this V stitch here. And once I get to the 16th one, I'm going to place a stitch marker. Okay, so I'm going to do the first one right now here with you guys. So starting from this here, I don't count this one. So I have, so starting from here, because this is where my other increase is. So I'm going to start right away here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And into that 16th V, I'm going to place a stitch marker. Okay. Then from this stitch marker, I'm going to count another 16, 13, 14, 15, 16. And this is where I'm placing the next stitch marker. And so now between this one and my other one, I should have 16 sets here. Okay, so now my front panel is marked. So here's my side marker. And here's the 2 in front and then the one on the side here. Okay, just like that. So what I've done is I've divided my front panel into 3 sections. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the back side. Again, beginning from the side stitch marker, I'm going to count 16, place a stitch marker, count 16, place a stitch marker. So basically we're going to divide our dress into 6 portions in total. So secure your stitch markers and then we will talk about around 47. Okay, so once your stitch markers are in place, now you're going to keep repeating the same pattern idea from round 41 and round 42. So every time you come across a stitch marker, you will be placing a shell stitch into that space. So that's 3 double crochets. So you will do the same thing here, okay? And so that's going to increase our stitches by 6. So for round 47, I'm going to end up having 202 stitches. Okay, then you're going to continue on to round 48. And in round 48, you're going to now do the same thing you did down here. You see where there's a shell? You simply place a V inside of a V. Again, you will increase your stitch count by 6 stitches. And at the end of round 48, you're going to have 208 stitches. Again, this is if you're following exactly with my measurements. I'm going to set you loose there to do what you've got to do, and then we can talk about round 49. Okay, I have completed round 48, And so I've got round 47 and 48 were increase rounds on each of the stitch markers. Now it is a very subtle increase, so it's not like you're going to necessarily see a dramatic difference, but you can really see that it's flaring out on the sides here. Now all we're going to do is we're going to create the length from that cinch area there to the hem. So from round, this is just round 48 is complete. So now I'm going to do from round 49 to round 110. I'm just going to continue doing the traditional stitch we've been doing, which is placing one V inside of a V stitch. Okay, really, really easy, straightforward. If you want to make yours a little shorter, you may stop after round 80 or round 70. But that is the length I'm going to do for mine. So, okay, so I have now completed round 62. And so now you can see the beautiful shaping that the top is taking on. So it's got this beautiful flared out kind of peplum look. And so now I am going to take you through a really pretty little edging just to finish it off. And it's super simple. Okay, so this is where I slip stitched and turned my work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain one. So sorry, I've already chained one there. And I'm going to go directly into that very first V, and I'm going to place a single crochet. Just like that. Now I'm going to chain two, 1, 2, and I'm going to go back into that same V, and I'm going to do a single crochet. So it just kind of creates this really tiny little pretty peak there. Okay. Now in between the V, in this space here, I'm going to slip stitch. Then I move on to the next V and repeat the same thing. So into each V, you're going to place a single crochet, chain 2, single crochet again back into that same stitch. Then into the space, you are going to slip stitch. V, you will place single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and slip stitch. Okay, so this is the effect here. Whoops. So it creates these pretty little peaks at the edge of your trim there. And it's really simple and just a little extra detail, a little pretty detail there. Okay, so that's what you're going to do all the way around. And as always, I'll just meet you at the end to kind of finish it off with you. Okay, so this is my very last V I'm going to go into. I just slip stitched. Now I'm going to single crochet. So that's usually where we do that chain 3. That's why that V is a little wider. I'll chain 2, single crochet, and now I'm just going to slip stitch into the space right here, and we are done our trim. So I'll just chain 1 and trim my yarn, snip my yarn here, and pull that through. And we have completed our work. Look at that, guys. I'll just weave that end in later. So now you can really see the effect of the trim there. I just love how that turned out. So here we have our Glamour top complete. I still have to take out those stitch markers, but so you can see the shaping. It has this beautiful flare. I have that really, really pretty edge. Now, I have this much left over. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm also going to come to the top and just add the same edging to the top of my top, so to speak, okay? So what you're going to do is if you're going to work along the top here, you're going to place a single crochet into a stitch, chain 2, and then single crochet into the very next stitch. Then you'll slip stitch into the following. So single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, slip stitch, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, then slip stitch. Okay, and that's going to give you the similar shape as your bottom. So once you've done that trim, then we will talk about inserting our elastics into our eyelets. Okay, so all of my trims are done. So I've got that bottom really pretty trim and the top as well. I just wanted you guys to see how subtle it is. And I just love how that came out. So now you can really see the full shape of it. And I love this little flare here. It's perfect if you've got that little tummy that you kind of trying to camouflage, which I certainly do. This is perfect. It just gives that beautiful right amount of flare just to kind of cover that up. So now what we're doing is we're going to take our elastic and we are going to feed it through into our eyelets here. And I've done 2 rows here. And this is where you'll make sure that you need an actual thread needle and your thread. Okay, because this is what's going to secure your elastic to your garment. So, okay, so this is now where you want to make the decision where the back of your garment officially sits, because that's where we're going to have the seam to our elastic. And if I do say so myself, it looks like I wove in my ends so good, so well done that I can't find where the back is, which is not a problem at all. Okay, there it is. Got a little extra bump there. Okay, so my back is here. So you're simply just going to take one of your elastics and you're just going to weave it in and out of your eyelet. So I'm going to start off with that bottom row first. And so I'm just going to feed it in and out. It's super, super straightforward. Now, for some people, they might find it a little easier to pin a safety pin to the end. And many claim it helps them feed things through a lot easier, but I am not having any issues whatsoever. So that is what I'm going to do. And pretty much... And so your work's going to look a little something like this. Okay, so do that, and then you're going to do your second one, and then I'll meet back up with you guys when we're ready to kind of sew in the 2 ends together. Okay, so once you have your elastic woven in the way you like, it's important to try it on and cinch that elastic in where it's going to sit snugly around your body, because remember, it does stretch. So you want it to be contoured to your top because, again, it's a strapless garment. So that is why I have my safety pin here. And what worked out really great is the final 2 ends both wove inside. Okay, so that way we can keep the sewn in part on the inside. Not that it really matters, it's going to shift around, but that's kind of how I think. Now, what you want to do is turn your garment inside out, as you can see I have here, and make sure you already have your needle and thread ready. And then I'm just going to take this out, making sure to hang on to the spot. So I'm going to hold on to it right about there. And then eventually what we're going to do is we're just going to snip off the excess. So we're just going to start right away and insert my thread needle just like that. Now I chose blue, but you can choose white if you want it to blend in. I just figured it's all going to blend in. It's white, blues, silvers, all that kind of stuff. So you're just going to do like a simple little whip stitch to start, just to secure it. And then what you can do is you can just go in, be careful not to prick yourself, down, and then back up. And you simply just want to go back and forth until you get across to the other side. And now I'm going to come back from the bottom to the up, the bottom to the up. I know I'm very technical in my terms. So you can see it's moving across there. And again, actually, I am already going to snip some of this off to get it out of my way. Just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to go back in. So I'm going to go back and forth several times to make sure it's nice and secure. Some people might even do a second and third row on either side, which I'm not opposed to. And then you are good to go. Okay, so once you're done that, then you're going to go and do the same thing around the waistline where we had the eyelets, which you can see I've already done. You will secure those, and then you'll be ready to wear your fabulous Glamour top. Okay, and once you've sewn in all of your elastics, your Glamour top is complete. So I actually just kept one elastic through the eyelet, and I kind of left the other eyelet row as a little bit of a kind of ruffled decor. So I'm very happy with that. I like how the white elastic actually adds an accent and accentuates kind of the shape at the bodice here. So it's really great if you want to show a little bit of contour in just the right spots. So I hope that you have enjoyed working on this top. Now, if you want, you can always add straps to this and do a few other things with it, which actually there will be a tutorial coming up in future where I show you how you can add some fancier straps to this. So stay tuned for that one coming up in a little while. And you are ready to rock it at the beach disco or the beach club, or if you just want to feel a little extra glamorous this summer, whether you're strolling along the beach or walking through the park. I think this is a great accent to any outfit. You can wear it with a skirt or some leggings or jeans and a really beautiful accent necklace to just really make it pop. I think there's so many options with this top, and with a little bit of patience, anyone can create this. So I hope you've had a great time working on this top. You'll feel a great sense of accomplishment once it's done. If you have any detailed questions at all, please do leave them in the comment box down below. Or you can always reach me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. And if you are looking to use this yarn, it is a bit trickier to find right now, but you can find it on Amazon. And I'll leave a link in the description box down below to my own Amazon links, and it is an affiliate link just in case that you are interested in using the exact same yarn that I used. All right, and by the way, if you really liked working on this kind of project, make sure to give me a thumbs up, because I really do pay attention to the types of projects that you guys like, and I will do more of these. So if you like some of these garment tutorials, whether they're summer or winter, I will make sure to create more of these. In the meantime, guys, have an amazing day. Happy crocheting, and I'll see you in the next session. Take good care.